Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel, Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Sarah.
And in today's video, we're going to share how to properly expose an image and the most common photography mistake that we see our new photography students making that really prevents them from doing so.
Like consistently. And this really simple yet like fundamental idea can totally change the way that you photograph portraits and weddings. So let's get to it.
So here's the most common exposure mistake that we see new photographers making. They set their exposure, they set their settings in manual, they expose their image for the background, and then they try to fix their subjects in editing. So in other words, they worry more about, the sky looking blue and vibrant or the grass looking right than they do about their subjects looking their best, the people who actually hired them for the portrait session or the wedding day.
Yeah. So here is our number one rule when it comes to shooting in manual mode. Expose for your subjects, not the background. Anytime you are setting your exposure settings and making a decision about how bright or how dark your image should be, you should basically just ignore your background and focus just on your subjects.
And here's what we mean by this. If you are outside shooting natural light, what you have probably noticed is that most of the time, probably 90% of the time, unless it's really heavy overcast, your camera just cannot physically capture the same level of brightness for both your subjects and your background and your sky.
Yeah, and of course this, like the one time that all is possible is if you put your subjects like right in direct light, and we like 0% recommend that, because if you do that, your subjects are just gonna be blasted in the face with the sun. They're just gonna like squint the whole time. It's just not ideal.
So assuming you are not blasting your subjects in the face with direct sunlight on a bright sunny day, then here's sort of an example of what we mean. Now in this raw image, which one of our apprentices who was assisting us on a wedding day captured, as you can see, they set their exposure for the sky. And so yes, the sky is vibrant and blue and it really looks nice. But our subjects are super dark, and this is going to require some serious fixing in editing or in post.
And in this raw image that Hunter actually captured that same wedding day, he exposed for our subjects. And as you can see, our couple is looking much better, but the sky is like so bright that it's basically just turned white, which is also called kind of being blown out.
And here is why we set our settings this way. Sure, a beautiful sunset or a bright blue vibrant sky is great. But if we're photographing a family session, we care way more about the expressions of our subjects and the giggles and all the fun that they're having and showing that through their facial expressions and their skin tones than we do about like having a big blue sky behind them.
And likewise, if we're photographing a couple during their engagement session or on their wedding day, we would much rather we'd much rather like the love and the joy between them be the focus of the image, even if that means like totally blowing out the background.
Now, a few objections that we know we are going to hear as we often talk about this subject. The first one, and that we're going to pause and hear and address, is basically, people will say to us, well, shouldn't I expose for my background correctly and then just fix my subjects in editing? And that's honestly a pretty reasonable request or a pretty reasonable question.
After all, if you expose for your subject and totally blow out the sky, there's no way to recover that sky in editing. And if you want to do that, you'd actually have to add in like an artificial sky using like layers in Photoshop, which is a pretty complicated process.
Because once you blow out a sky and it's pure white no matter how much you darken that image, right? So maybe you might think like, oh, well then let me, way underexpose my subject because I can brighten that up in post, which yes is true if, and this is a big if you want to spend a lot of time in editing.
Yeah, sometime last year, we actually posted a video where we compared the two most popular business models that photographers operate with, which are in-person sales or IPS, and the shoot and share model. And if you want to learn more about those two business models, you can check out the link above Hunter's head. But the kind of like TLDR is that in an IPS business model, you will likely only deliver like a small handful of images per hour of coverage. So an hour-long engagement session might only yield like 10 or 15 images, and like an entire wedding day might have like 100 or 200 images.
Now, if this is the business model that you're using, then it actually might make sense to ignore our advice in this video, expose for your background, and then bring your subject up in post. Because if you're only delivering a handful of images per hour of coverage, then each and every single image needs to be this exquisite work of art, just beautifully captured, perfectly and painstakingly retouched until everything is perfect. And this is where opening Photoshop and smoothing wrinkles and whitening teeth and removing blemishes and swapping out the sky for an even better looking sunset set. That's when these sorts of things start to make sense. You can afford to spend 5 or even 10 minutes per image because you're only delivering a relatively small handful of images.
Yeah. However, for our portrait and wedding photography business, and for all of the photographers who we have mentored over the years, none of them use that business model, which is really just like a leftover of like the days of film photography. And instead, we and all of the students that we've mentored have used the shoot and share business model, where you might deliver like 50 or 75 or even like 100 plus edited image per hour of coverage.
And so if you're going to deliver 100 plus edited images from a portrait session or 1,000 or more edited images from a wedding day, then taking the time to mask your subject and bring them up in every single image, taking 5 to 10 minutes per image, would translate to a completely unreasonable amount of time in editing. Hours and hours and days and days.
So instead, we just aim to expose for our subject properly in camera during the actual session and get raw files like these, so that our images require minimal editing in Lightroom, and our final images might look something more like this.
So at this point, you might be convinced that exposing for your subjects instead of your backgrounds is easier and more efficient than exposing for your background and then fixing your subject in post. But now you might be wondering, well, aren't my clients going to be upset that they have this white sky instead of, the vibrant sunset or the soft blue?
Yeah, and our short answer for that is no.
No.
They won't. We, as photographers, probably care more than the average client does.
And obviously, we're not going to say that every single client in the world doesn't care about this. But our experience has been that if we basically make our clients look great and capture them and their love story in a way that flatters them and is authentic to who they are, that they care way more about those things than they do about, the sky being blue or the background being vibrant or anything like that.
Yeah, like we've booked over 150 weddings, more than like 650 portrait sessions. And when we were like prepping for this video, we were trying to think back to it like literally a single time when someone received their photos and expressed disappointment in how the sky looked or how the background looked. And we literally couldn't think of a single one.
And in case you are worried that, maybe this tactic of ours works because our clients don't expect, super high-end imagery or because we don't charge that much, keep in mind that our wedding packages that we're booking right now for this upcoming year are in the $10,000 to $12,000 range. And so this certainly isn't just advice that works with like a low-end clientele or people who are looking for, an inexpensive wedding or portrait photographer.
Now, the final objection that you might have is regarding flash photography. After all, incorporating off-camera flash into your photography is like the one way that even in bright natural light, you can still expose for your background, capture that vibrant sky, and also properly expose your subject.
And to be honest, that is completely true. And if you really do feel like you want to deliver those kinds of images, then off-camera flash is definitely the way to go. But that aesthetic just isn't personally for us, right? You always want to create the type of art that you yourself enjoy, and we just aren't that into it anymore. And in fact, about a year ago, we posted a video where we explained how early in our career, we thought that all professional photographers basically had to shoot with off-camera flash. For some reason, we had this idea in our heads that exposing for your subjects and blowing out your background, which is literally what we do every day now, was somehow this symbol of amateur photography. And in order to become a pro, we had to have, those vibrant backgrounds. And so we were carrying around, light stands and speed lights to every single outdoor portrait session we did.
But a couple of years into our business, we fell in love with natural light photography and, hung up our pocket wizards and those light stands for good. And it was probably like 10% about the fact that like shooting with natural light is just simpler and easier than shooting with off-camera flash. And like 90% about the fact that we just preferred the natural light aesthetic over the flash aesthetic.
And at the end of the day, of course, there is no aesthetic that is better than the other. It's just about personal preference and something that you have to decide for your own business. But assuming you are like us and you do want to shoot exclusively with natural light, then when working outside, then exposing for your subjects is the way to go.
Yeah, get that good looking natural skin tones. But that's it for this week.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want more great content from us, more advice about learning how to take better images and growing your own wedding and portrait photography business, then we'd really encourage you to join our Facebook community called Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz with Hunter and Sarah. Link is in the description.
In that group, we are building a free community of photographers who are also building their photography businesses and helping each other out along the way.
And of course, like, subscribe, comment below if you have questions, all that good stuff, so you will be the first to know when our new videos drop.
See you next time.
See you next time.